Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Jacqueline McSweeney. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, Dr. Altman and the Concubines, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. And guys, listen, Jacqueline was brought to our network, People of Distinction today, by some of the best movers in the business, Parchment Global Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, do yourself a favor and contact Parchment. You can find out more information on them at parchmentglobalpublishing.com. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Jacqueline, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you so much for being a guest. How are you?
I'm fine, and thank you very much for that introduction. That was very nice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, Jacqueline, I meant every word, and we are very much looking forward to this. Again, the underlying message, I think, is something that is truly beneficial for society at large, right? To really contemplate and ponder on that question. But also, just to have a wonderful journey to embark upon and just get lost in it is something that we are absolutely looking forward to. Now, Jacqueline, I know we have so much information to cover, but before we go into the book, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
Surely. Well, I've had a very varied background. I've gone from Women Make Movies in the 70s, and I was a executive director there. It was a nonprofit that barely made it, but we were successful in fundraising, and it did well, so well, that we were able to do some interesting productions, one of which I was involved with was Why Women Stay, a film on battered women, and it's still taught in law school to this day. After I left Women Make Movies, I joined the Film Union, where I had a number of Me Too moments that drove me to law school, frankly. And the idea was, I'm going to go back and sue all these guys. Well, I didn't end up doing that. I ended up really representing and advocating for women in family court, in divorce litigation, in business. I spent a good 10 years at Women's Venture Fund, where I worked with women entrepreneurs to help them expand their business, do contracts, and just to make sure they were on the road to, frankly, a lot of them didn't know how to keep their books, didn't know how to take themselves into account when it came to paying themselves and things like that. Mm-hmm. Down very practical moves, but it was a good 10 years, and I enjoyed working with the women. And then, let's see, after that, I did, I worked in the DA's office for a while, but it didn't suit me to be on the prosecuting side, so I went over into defense, and that was interesting. And that was in New York. I lived in New York for 30 years, and that's where this book came from, is my time there. I go into Soho, which was a wonderful place at that time, and we lived down in Soho for 30 years on the same street. It was a Portuguese-Italian neighborhood, and there was a surplus of artists, painters, filmmakers, sculptors, writers, and Soho at that time had been factories. So all of these artists were moving in and integrating into this Portuguese-Italian neighborhood. And it was a thrilling time to be there. There were two restaurants at the time, Food, which was a cafeteria that served up a thick soup and thicker bread with slathers of wonderful butter, and that's what kept many of the artists fed for the day. And then Finelli's across the street, which is still there. That was a neighborhood bar, and I think one of the oldest bars in New York. But it was a good time to be there because you invariably were sitting down with someone who was in the creative field at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it on Old Soho. Oh, on Sundays on West Broadway, the artists would come and put their paintings up on artist stands, and the street was full of people who came to see the art and to buy the art. So that was a wonderful Sunday event. So it was an interesting time to be there, and I miss it. Soho's been taken over by, the Gap stores, the big conglomerate.
Right.
It's not the way it was.
Gotta love
now
capitalism.
at all.
Gotta love capitalism.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, thank you very much for sharing all of that. And listen, we're going to have to invite you back on the network, okay? Not to discuss this book again,
Sure.
not to discuss any other books that you write in the future.
Just Soho.
Just to discuss your background, because I'm sure you have stories for days, and we would love to hear them. So thank you very much.
I could talk about being the first script on the East Coast, and that was a tough thing. But we'll go on from there, because that was a mixed memory for me.
There you go. Well, listen, Jacqueline, today is all about Dr. Altman and the concubines.
Correct.
So without further ado, tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, what shall I tell you? It's in the late 70s, early 80s in Soho, and the Guerrilla Girls were painting their black forms on walls every night, and Lou Reed and Miss Anderson were walking the streets of Soho, and my detective, Sig Madigan, lives there in a tiny apartment up on the 6th floor overlooking the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. And that's her, so her venue is Soho at a time when it was exciting and full of artists. She has opened a detective agency because her boss got caught en flagrante at the Chelsea Hotel, and his wife sues him for everything, and he goes out of business. And she inherits the equipment and decides she's going to go into business for herself. Her first client is brought to her by a friend, and the client's name is Jennifer Palmer. And she's being blackmailed for $50,000 for a videotape that she made with her married boss, a pornographic tape. And Big has to figure out how to get into the case. And it's decided that she'll work for the video department at this institute, this Center for Psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. So she takes the job on with all the interest that has, because she's involved with seeing families and odd couples in therapy. She's videotaping these sessions. And while she's doing that as an undercover person, she's also trying to figure out who on the faculty might be person who's committing the blackmail. She deduces that it is Jennifer's married lover who is doing the blackmailing, but she can't prove it. And before she can prove it, he's murdered. And her client is somehow seen as the prime suspect because she's disappeared. And so Jennifer's job is to try to figure out where the heck she's gone and how to get her back, because the police are looking for her. In the meantime, her client has gone to Martinique with the director's wife, and she and the wife end up at the bottom of the Devil's Hole, bottom of Mount Pelée. So though they can't prove whether she did it or she didn't, but the news people, the Post and the Daily News, have suggested that she's the murderer. And Sig almost has to give up with the encouragement of the New York Police Department, because there is a sketchy detective who has been involved in some of the porno that has been produced at the Institute.
Listen, I'm telling you, this is a suspense, but I mean, there is never a dull moment. There is so much going on, and just when you feel you turned a corner, there's more going. All right. I absolutely love it. Now, one thing that you touched up on, Jacqueline, and I hope we don't give too much away with this, is you talked about Dr.
Right.
Altman being murdered. Why was that the case? Why was he murdered?
Well, it turns out that Dr. Altman was, in fact, abusing almost all of his women patients.
Oh, wow.
And the question is, was it somebody on staff? Was it one of the clients who murdered him, or somebody else involved? And so I'm not going to answer that question. You'll find out as you read it. But that's the pivotal question. He was so involved with the abuse that there are many prospects for the title of murderer.
Mm-hmm. And a great segue that you've established there, because following off of him being murdered, after that, Sig Madigan, was she acting lawfully or morally by not giving up Jennifer Palmer's whereabouts to the cops?
Well, she wasn't acting lawfully. Lawfully, she would have been advised to have given the police Jennifer Palmer's whereabouts. Morally, Jennifer Palmer was her client, and she felt that she needed to, by all means, be in touch with her client first before she talked with the police. So it's up in the air. And legally, she was in the wrong. Morally, she felt she was in the right, or she wouldn't have done it.
Absolutely. And following off of that, another morality question. Was it fair to say that the NYPD protected Detective Walther, though he was a corrupt cop?
It seems that the thin blue line is alive and well even today. But yes, they don't want anyone to be brought up on charges of corruption. And even though Detective Walther was retired, he still had the protection of the police force.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's something that the police have to look at. They need to be able to, come clean and admit that some cops fall and are corrupt instead of just covering it up, which
Absolutely.
is what goes on in the book.
Absolutely. Guys, again, here on the line with Jacqueline Shortell McSweeney. We're discussing her wonderful book, Dr. Altman and the Concubines, available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. Jacqueline, next question that I'd love to go into, and thank you very much for everything that you've relayed so far. One of your characters by the name of Johnny Morrow is in the story. In your opinion, why was he so pivotal to the plot?
Well, Johnny Morrow was the producer, director, and distributor of sexually exploitive films. And he was, in fact, in touch with Altman. And he was planning on distributing some of the tapes that Altman had produced himself. So Horizontal Films was the name of his company. He had been involved in producing a number of pornographic films, one of which was based upon the Marquis de Sade and his group's his characters. So it was Morrow was involved here and pivotal because he was going to be an outlet for some of the pornographic films that Dr. Altman had done on his own.
Jacqueline, curiosity for myself with this next question. Let's take it back to your days in the courtroom here, okay? In your opinion, was justice served?
Well, I did practice as a criminal law attorney. No, justice is not served legally because none of the people who were responsible for the evil committed were brought to justice by the law. They never faced a courtroom. They never faced a jury. And they didn't face what we consider justice.
Mm-hmm. Last question here, and I don't know if you're going to answer it, but I'm going to put it out there anyway, Jacqueline. The underlying message, one of the underlying themes to your book is that question that I started the interview with is, do people deserve one another? I'm really curious to hear your answer with regards to that.
It's simple. It's the end of the book, which I won't divulge. It's up to the reader whether justice or morally justice has been served.
There it is. Ah, so close. Guys, so close. I thought I had her there. I thought she was going to answer it. But nope. Good try. Well, you know what you have to do.
It's an unexpected ending, I'll say.
There you go.
At least that's what the readers have told me.
There you go. And the only way for you to find out for yourself is by going to Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, picking up your copy of Dr. Altman and the Concubines by Jacqueline McSweeney. You surely will not be disappointed. Guys, I'm going to say it again, even though I started the interview by saying this. For me personally, it's all about getting lost in the journey. It's all about leaving the confines that I found myself stuck in for the past 1.5 to 2 years and just getting lost in a safe journey. I absolutely love it. I know you do as well. And that underlying question, there's a lot of, listen guys, it's not so black and white, right? There are a lot of areas of gray with life itself. And you find that within this book with the characters and the dilemmas that they find themselves stuck in. So you know what you have to do. Head on over there, pick up your copy, and get lost in this journey. You surely will not be disappointed. Jacqueline, thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. It truly was a pleasure having you on.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate your calling me, and I appreciate your help in getting this book out there.